Hi everyone, welcome to Wine Witter. So this video today we're going to be looking at some English wines from Surrey, and it's a place I'm very familiar with. I've been there a few times now for the past 4 years, I think, and I wanted to say just quickly that these Wine Witter episodes, a lot of them will be much more in this style, much more conversational. I called it Wine Witter for a reason. I want to just witter on, and hopefully people will still find it interesting and engaging. So, as I said, here we are. I've got 3 wines here by Albury Vineyard, which is run by a winemaker called Nick Wenman, and I am lucky enough to be friends with his daughter, who is also a singer. You'll come to realise pretty quickly that most of the links are because someone else is a musician or someone that I've worked with. But no, she is a very good friend. And every year for the past 4 years, we have done an Opera Gala, which normally takes place over about a period of a weekend. So we'll have a Saturday sort of rehearse. We might even get there Friday night just to catch up. And then the Sunday will be the logistics of it all at the vineyard. And then we'll do the gala, and then we'll have a big party, and normally a barbecue. And it's always at the end of summer, sort of August, September time. So don't worry, obviously I will tag the name of the vineyard, Albury Organic Wines, and I will obviously be mentioning again that, you know, every summer be sure to check out sort of in the beginning of the summer if you want tickets for that particular Opera Gala. It's always sold out, and it's always a great time to listen to some music and from myself and a few colleagues, and enjoy a lot of wine, and there's usually nibbles and things, have a tour of a vineyard. It's a really lovely day. So, I digress. Albury Wine are based not too far outside of Guildford in Surrey. I guess the nearest actual village is probably a place called Shear. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, I went to university in Guildford, so I should know this. I'm going to stick with Shear, which is spelled S-H-E-R-E, not garden shears. And it's not a huge vineyard. It's actually quite small. I forget when Nick actually began making wine, but it's not old. I'm going to take a stab and say it's probably about 10 years old, 10 to 15 years old, something like that. But he wasn't always in winemaking. I think he had something to do with IT. And so the plot isn't actually huge, and it's extremely walkable, which is another reason why it's a good visit. And also, if you live in London, as I do, Guildford is not far away. You know, you just hop on the A3, you're there in 45 minutes or so, or an hour. Anyway, they're doing a great job, basically, as well as their products, of which they have a decent range, being very, in terms of English winemaking, because the climate is the struggle in England, obviously. It's become, I can't think what the word is, reliable. Their wines are year in, year out, very well structured, full of flavour, full of much more, and it must be something to do with the soil and the climate and the terroir, as we call it, full of much more flavours, many flavours that you would associate more with, you know, the English palate. So things like gooseberries and apples, and those sorts of flavours, grassy notes can come through sometimes. You know, and I don't mean these things just taste of these things. These are things you get on the nose and, you know, in the mouth as you taste the wine. So I've got 3 here. This is, I've also got a wet cloth because I went to the old wine rack and they've gathered some dust. So this is always quite a nice activity. I get something out of this. I don't quite understand why, but there's something that's really satisfying about allowing a bottle of wine to get quite dusty and then just to clean it a little bit. I mean, these sparkling wines that I've got on the left here that you'll see, or it may be your right, actually. I think it's your right. haven't been off the shelf since I bought them. So anyway, they're now clean. You should be able to see them a bit better. So what we've got here is Albury Vineyard's Silent Pool Rosé, and this is the 2018, and alcohol percentage is 11%. Now, some of you might be thinking straight away from the off, well, this is the problem with English wines. There's not enough sun, and as a result, the climate doesn't give enough sun over the summer months and allow the sugars to get enough sunlight, and for the grapes to become sweeter, and they have to harvest early, blah 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 blah. But I can tell you, I had a bottle of the 2017 rosé with my family because of this lockdown. It allowed for an opportunity to have a barbecue, and the 2017 was fantastic. The flavours I can remember, kind of peach, quite sweet honey flavour, and sort of a bit of melon, but it was really full on and delicious, I thought, and it's just perfect. I mean, rosé for me is a drink that I always drink in the summer or outside in the sun anyway. I mean, it's just a done thing with rosé for me. And the other thing about that 2017, which I had the other day, was that it was only 10.5%. And I seem to remember after one of the Opera Galas talking to Nick and him saying, oh, it was the year actually that, I think 2017 was the year that even France and in Europe had the frosts. And certainly in England, when it was sort of March, April time, maybe even end of February, there was so much frost that winemakers throughout Europe, it wasn't just in England and in France, but further in the Mediterranean even was cold. It was during that huge cold period. Were worried about their vintage, their harvest for that year, and I think that was 2017, which would explain why it was only 10.5%. But I mean, Nick did give me the hint of leave it alone. For the longer you leave it, I'm not sure whether it's this. Well, yeah, he basically said the sugars will keep, reacting in the bottle, and it should have a bit more flavour and a bit more sweetness if you leave it for 2 or 3 years. And he was right. It's 2020 now. Had it the other day, the 2017. It was delicious, and there's a 10.5% rosé, which I've never had a wine of any sort that lower percentage. It was delicious. So this is 2018, and it's 11%. So I can only imagine, from my experience of having the 10.5% 17 the other day, I probably won't have this until 2021, just because I now know that their wine, this rosé, particularly benefits from having a bit of time on the shelf, and just leave it alone. And you'll notice screw cap. Why not? Other interesting things about this wine, screw cap is, costs. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this wine. It's got a screw cap and it's delicious. If you watch the Wine Basics video that I've posted, I go through, this saves a lot of money, screw caps. And as I said, you're not keeping it longer than 2 or 3 years, so why put a cork in it and allow cork taint or anything like that to happen? The other big accolade that Albury Wines managed to get was the Queen's Jubilee in 2010, I think it was, and on her flotilla on the Thames, it was actually Albury's rosé that the Queen was drinking on the flotilla, on the Royal Flotilla. So if that isn't an accolade and an achievement for a bottle of wine, I don't know what is. If a blooming Queen is drinking it, I think we can drink it as well. What else can I tell you about this wine? I can tell you that it's extremely inexpensive. It's certainly not more. Actually, here's the issue. Not going to lie, at the end of the Opera Gala, we get a bottle of this for free. So I'm trying to remember how much it costs. It's not expensive. English wine tends to be a bit more expensive because there's less of a yield every year, but we're not talking masses. It's certainly nothing near like £16 or anything. I think it might be around 12. It's between £11 and £14. I'd put my house on it. I don't think they're selling it for more than that. I mean, you can check out their website. Just go to Albury Vineyard dot whatever it is. It'll be easy enough to find on Google. But yeah, can't recommend the stuff enough. I've whittled on long enough about this one. Let's move on. Now, as I said earlier, actually, why don't I put them like this? Ooh, so you can still look at them and your mouth might, a bit of drool might form. There you are. Moving on. These are both, obviously, you can tell, sparkling fizz, sparkling whites. Albury Wines also make a sparkling rosé, which I can tell you is, I've had it once, I think, in my time there, and the one I had, it was probably the 2015 vintage, was delicious, just very, very sublime. I should point out quickly now, actually, that the reason I'm, starting with local wine is because everybody's stuck indoors and can't go anywhere, and if you can go to a supermarket or you can order online, you're more inclined probably to order within, in-house from in the UK at the moment, maybe. And do this, try these, buy some, they're great. What else is my point? My point was that a lot of English winemakers, I think, especially I can't remember the name of the company, but I think it's in the Sussex Downs, are, rivaling the highest champagne blind testing tests in France every year, and they're doing just as well, getting awards over, established champagne makers in Reims. And, I think that speaks testament to the quick progression the English sparkling wine in particular has made over a shorter period of time. Albury themselves, Nick has told me several times that, sorry Nick, that sounds like a slant, it's not meant to be. I can just remember every year, it's interesting, and I probably ask you every year. He has explained to me that actually a lot of especially at his vineyard, but I would have thought so in other English vineyards as well, is that the soil quality, the chalk and the limestone based soil of the rocks as well in the surrounding area where they plant their vines is of a very similar makeup to where a lot of champagne winemakers will plant their vines. And normally, if you're a smart winemaker, which Nick definitely is, he knows his stuff, they will look for an area which is slightly dug in, and around the outsides you'll have banks going up slightly, so that when the sun is shining down on the zone, where the vines are, the heat is concentrated around the vines, and it creates this bed of warm circulating air that the grapes benefit from, and also because it helps to heat the rocks that are around the vines at the bottom as well, which also helps to concentrate heat onto the grapes and around the vines. So there's just a little bit of gumph about why and how it's possible that some English winemakers are able to make very, very fine wine. So these immediately went on the shelf on my wine rack. One of them, when I bought them. Did I buy it? Yes. Also worth noting, I bought the fizz because there's no way that an English winemaker is going to give you a bottle of fizz for singing, because these are much more expensive. I think they're between anything and about £24 to £30 a bottle, which is not surprising. As I said, low yield. They're going to have to sell it for higher. They've got to make money. I mean, it would be very easy for Albury wine, and other like English makers to, what I'm trying to say, to go out of business quite quickly if they, if people A, didn't buy it, and B, they didn't buy it for a decent price, because the yield just isn't enough. Sadly, we're not blessed with major big sites. But anyway, so my point is, I'm not actually sure what they are, so I thought it'd be fun to have a look together, because I can't remember. Ah, yes, so this one is the Albury Estate Organic Blanc de Blanc, and I can read you, there you are, fine wines from the Surrey Hills, and that is no word of a lie there, trust me. So here's what the bottle says. and it should tell me the year as well, and I'll give you the alcohol percentage, etc. At Albury, we produce the finest quality organic wines from biodynamic grapes grown in the Surrey hills. Our sparkling wines are made using the traditional method, the same as champagne. The vineyard is on the southern slopes of the North Downs near Guildford, in an area of outstanding natural beauty. Albury Estate, where the vines are grown, is the Surrey home of the Duke of Northumberland. So there, you might even see the Duke of Northumberland. You won't. This wine is made from a blend of biodynamic Chardonnay and Céval Blanc grapes from the 2016 vintage, this is. Okay. It is a fresh, crisp, dry bubbly. It is a fresh, crisp, dry bubbly with a hint of honeyed sweetness and citrus and herb aromas. Now, I've certainly had Albury's Blanc de Blanc before, and it's been delicious. Whether, I can't remember what year, I probably had the 2014 or the 15. This is the 16, which means I bought it when I was performing there in 2017, so 3 years ago. And it says it's a fresh, crisp, dry bubbly. It was dry, the one I had last time. But there's not, not in an overly, absolutely, too dry kind of a way. It was just right. And it says a honeyed sweetness. I certainly remember there being a honeyed sweetness, and definitely the citrus, sort of kind of perfume of kind of lemon and grass, certainly apples, gooseberries, definitely. And it says herb aromas. I can't quite remember. So I'm not even going to take a stab at, trying to remember the perfume of the Blanc de Blanc that I had a few years ago. But all I can say is, this one has won the International Organic Wine Award Top Gold for 2018. And there it is. It's a fantastic wine. I couldn't recommend it more. I have kept them for a couple of years, and they've obviously been fine. But because Nick knows what he's doing, and Nick has such a great team, I think you could keep this for much longer. I'd go as far to say, 7-8 years. I think the quality of the winemaking is so good that I think the flavours will only develop. I don't think it will be ruined. I've had some very old champagne. I had 2002 the other week, which was delicious. I had a 98 before that. When it's done right, they'll last. But couldn't recommend it more. And as I say, I think it's from anywhere between, I'm going to say this is around the £24 mark. I think that's relatively accurate. Yes, because I have memories of buying two and it being about 50 quid. So just under. So I'm going to say it's about 24 or 25 pounds. That one. And that's the 2016 vintage. And just the notes again. It's fresh, crisp, dry bubbly with a hint of honeyed sweetness and citrus and herb aromas. And the real joy from these English wines, the sparkling ones that is the real English style perfumes and tastes that you'll recognise. And I do harp on about the kind of gooseberry flavours and apple. I know gooseberry is bitter, but it's not like, that's all you taste. It's balanced well with the sweetness, the honey, the citrus flavours. It's really top stuff. So yeah, the Blanc de Blanc. And what do we have here? This is another gold winner. This is their classic cuvée, which they make. Again, fine wines from the Surrey Hills. And this one won the International Organic Wine Award of 2019. Got the Gold Award. There you are. Lovely escutcheon emblem that they've gone for there. It's nice and simple. It looks classy. And, this one's obviously got a gold top. The Blanc de Blanc has a silver top. But it does look like a fine wine product, and it jolly well tastes like it. Now, I've probably almost definitely had the cuvée, classic cuvée. but I would do very well to remember when. It's probably something Nick opened towards the end of a show, towards the end of a night after the show when we'd all had quite a bit. It says here that this is the 2017 vintage. Same information on the bottle. Oh, I didn't tell you what the percentage was in the Blanc de Blanc. I do... Excuse me, that's the word I'm looking for. It's 12%. 12%, so what you'd expect. Kind of 11.5, 12. Still quite low, I guess, actually. Well, actually, 12 is on the money. 12, 12.5, 13 is what you'd expect. Kind of, once you start getting 11.5, as is this one, I guess it can be a bit of a stamp that it's, English climate, hence, the grapes aren't getting enough sun, blah, blah, blah. But, as I've said, it did the 2017 10.5% rosé, no harm. Left it for 3 years. Drank it April 2020, it was delicious. So here we have the Classic Cuvée 2017. The tasting notes are as follows. It is an elegant dry bubbly with subtle red berry flavours and light citrus aromas, which sounds really interesting actually. If I could remember, in fact the red flavours come from, Nick said he uses Pinot Noir in the Classic Cuvée. I do remember that. Oh, the bottle will tell me. Why don't I just read it? Here we are. This wine is made from a classic blend of biodynamic Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier and Chardonnay grapes. So those citrus flavours are coming from the Chardonnay mainly. Most kind of whites that are, and rosés that are made, and sparkling wine, that's made in, say for example, the south of France, in the southern Rhone. They'll use Chardonnay to get those. They'll make a lot of 100% Chardonnay wines actually. Places like Domaine des Escarivés, and that is predominantly the grape that's giving you a lot of citrusy flavours. And it's a grape I think English people are very familiar with, because a lot of people will go for a Chardonnay in a restaurant over a Pinot Noir or a Viognier. I think, because the Viognier is very citrusy. So I think a lot of people in the UK would enjoy this. And Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, as well as the Chardonnay. So it says the red berry flavours. I would put my house on it that most of that is predominantly coming from the Pinot Noir grapes. Pinot Meunier, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about viniculture to state, this is what happens to the quality of wine when you throw some Pinot Meunier on. I'm also not sure of the percentages. I would have thought a lot, huge, if not like 70%, 80% Chardonnay, then sort of maybe 15% Pinot Noir, and then I would have thought the Meunier is something that adds some sweetness and takes off the edge of something. So maybe I imagine you might even only put 5% Meunier in this, perhaps. I don't know. You'd have to look on their website. I'm sure it's there. Maybe I should have done that before just whittling on. Haha, there it is again. Wine whittle. See, works. As I say, I think I probably had this when I was a bit pissed once in my life, but my memory is jogged by the subtle red berry flavours, and that's why I think I just whittled off why it's the Pinot Noir that gives it that sort of flavour, because I think even in a slightly precarious state I did have some, and it was magnificent. Otherwise I wouldn't have bought one. I wouldn't have bought any of these wines had I not tried them, because that's just how... Well, that's lies. I will buy a lot of wine from Laithwaite's, for example, that I haven't tried before. Even Ital Venus or Vinissimus, two websites there. But I do remember Nick talking about this one, and yeah, hence why I've bought it. So this is a 2017 vintage. Yes, I have a feeling I may have said it's 2016 vintage earlier, which was the other one. The Classic Cuvée is 2017, just to reiterate. And I'd be interested to see how that's getting on. It's now 2020. I mean, it's tempting just to open it now, isn't it? All of them. But I won't. I want to, though. So there's I've whittled on long enough. There's an introduction to a selection of products that Albury make. They also make a gin. They make honey. He has bees. And their honey's really good. They make a red, which I have to say is not bad. It obviously making red wine in England, in the UK, is you're making things difficult for yourself because there's just not enough sun. It's not hot enough, and there's not enough sun for long enough. In recent years, their red, and I expect other UK producers' reds, have been getting better purely because, you know, these Indian summers that we get in the middle of October and it's still 23, 24 degrees and the sun is shining with no clouds in the sky. But you do get the years where that doesn't happen. So the red wine is up and down, not going to lie. And that's not just, I mean, over the UK in general. I have had Albury's red and it was okay. It was okay. I think I can remember some sort of cherry flavours. Maybe perhaps a little thin. You know, there wasn't much longevity to the taste. Maybe it was a little thin, but you know, that's no fault of anyone that works there. The team are fantastic. You know, they really know their stuff. I think one of his main viniculture experts is from Italy, and I forget her name, but she knows everything about everything, and it's quite ridiculous. But that's what you'd expect. You know, if you want to be making English quality wine and quality sparkling wine, then you get the right people in. So there's a brief introduction to Albury Vineyard, who use biodynamic methods and grapes to make their wine. That was Wine Whittle. I'll see you on the next one.